The Franco-Prussian War of 1870 to 1871 is often remembered as a titanic clash of land forces, with massive battles like Sedan and Metz determining the fate of empires. Yet, lurking in the shadows of history is a lesser-known but fascinating aspect of this conflict: the naval theatre. While the land war dominated the headlines and shaped the course of history, the naval dimension offers a compelling glimpse into the ambitions, technology, and limitations of the time. It's a story of mismatched powers, bold strategies, and the emerging role of industrialization in warfare. Let's delve into the maritime side of the Franco-Prussian War, a tale that's just as intriguing as it is underexplored. In 1870, France stood as a global naval power. The French Navy, or Marine Nationale, was a force to be reckoned with, boasting one of the largest and most advanced fleets in the world. Over the previous decades, France had invested heavily in steam-powered ironclads, transforming its navy into a modern fighting force. These ironclads, with their steel hulls and steam engines, represented the cutting edge of 19th-century naval technology, and France viewed its navy as a symbol of its prestige and power. The fleet was also tasked with protecting France's vast colonial empire, stretching across Africa, Asia, and the Americas. On the other hand, Prussia was primarily a land power. Its military might lay in its army, not its navy. The Prussian navy was small and largely insignificant, consisting of a handful of outdated ships and lacking the resources or technology to challenge France at sea. Prussia's maritime capabilities were further hampered by its geography. Its coastlines on the North Sea and Baltic Sea were limited and vulnerable. Yet Prussia wasn't entirely without options. The North German Confederation, which Prussia led, brought together the naval resources of smaller German states like Schleswig-Holstein and Mecklenburg. Together, these states provided a modest boost to Prussia's naval strength, though it was still no match for the French fleet. When war broke out in July 1870, France quickly sought to exploit its naval superiority. The French government declared a blockade of German ports, aiming to strangle Prussia's economy and cut off vital supplies. The blockade focused on key ports like Hamburg, Bremen, and Kiel, which were crucial to German trade and industry. In theory, this strategy should have given France a decisive advantage. After all, blockades had been a cornerstone of naval warfare for centuries, used to great effect by powers like Britain during the Napoleonic Wars. However, the French blockade faced significant challenges. For one, Germany's coastline was long and difficult to patrol effectively. French ships struggled to cover the vast expanse of the North Sea and Baltic Sea, and the Germans took advantage of this by using smaller ports and inland waterways to bypass the blockade. Additionally, the blockade's impact was limited by the fact that Germany wasn't as reliant on overseas trade as France. While the blockade did disrupt some commerce, it failed to deliver the crippling blow the French had hoped for. Prussia, meanwhile, adopted an asymmetric approach to naval warfare. Lacking the resources to build a fleet capable of challenging France directly, they turned to privateers and commerce raiders. These were privately owned ships authorized by the government to attack enemy vessels, a tactic that allowed Prussia to harass French shipping without committing its limited naval resources. Prussian privateers proved to be surprisingly effective, capturing French merchant ships and creating headaches for the French navy. This forced France to divert warships to protect its trade routes, further stretching its already overextended fleet. While the French navy was technically superior, it was hampered by logistical and strategic issues. Much of the fleet was stationed overseas, protecting France's colonies and interests abroad. This meant that when war broke out in Europe, many of France's best ships were far from home and couldn't be mobilized quickly. Furthermore, the rapid pace of the land war distracted French leaders from fully capitalizing on their naval strength. Plans for an ambitious amphibious assault on the German coast were abandoned due to logistical difficulties and the deteriorating situation on land. The war also highlighted the limitations of the French Navy's ironclads. These technologically advanced ships were powerful and intimidating, but their role in the conflict was largely confined to blockading duties. The lack of major naval battles meant that the ironclads had little opportunity to prove their worth. Meanwhile, Prussia's reliance on older, smaller ships and coastal defenses underscored the continued importance of traditional naval strategies, even in an age of rapid technological change. International diplomacy also played a crucial role in the naval theatre of the Franco-Prussian War. France's aggressive actions at sea, including its attempts to enforce the blockade, drew criticism from neutral powers like Britain and the United States. These nations had strong economic ties to Germany and were wary of French efforts to dominate European waters. British ships in particular ensured that trade routes remained open, undermining the effectiveness of the French blockade. This diplomatic backlash limited France's ability to act decisively at sea, as they had to balance their military goals with maintaining good relations with key trade partners. By the end of the war in early 1871, the naval conflict had proven to be a secondary front. The French Navy failed to achieve the decisive victories it had hoped for, and Prussia's naval efforts, while resourceful, were ultimately overshadowed by the overwhelming success of its army. The Treaty of Frankfurt, which ended the war, made no significant mention of naval matters, reflecting the limited impact of the maritime theatre on the overall outcome of the conflict. However, the war had lasting implications for naval strategy and development. For France, it was a humbling experience. Despite its superior navy, its inability to leverage that advantage effectively revealed weaknesses in its strategy and organization. For Prussia, the war underscored the importance of having a strong navy. In the years following the unification of Germany in 1871, the newly formed German Empire began investing heavily in its naval forces, laying the foundation for the rise of the Imperial German Navy, a navy that would one day rival Britain's Royal Navy in the early 20th century. The Franco-Prussian War at sea is a fascinating and often overlooked chapter of history. It's a story of mismatched powers, innovative strategies, and the growing importance of industrialization in warfare. While the naval theatre didn't decide the outcome of the war, it offers valuable insights into the challenges and opportunities of 19th century naval warfare. It's a reminder that even in a conflict dominated by armies, the oceans still played a vital role.